across our area here. As we wait to hear from the president here at the podium, on this Earth Day, President Biden took steps to restore national forests. His executive order that he signed will protect some of the nation's largest and oldest trees. And he did this today on Earth Day. Old growth trees, those are the key buffers against climate change. They absorb significant amounts of carbon dioxide, which contributes to global warming. And Biden's order directs federal land managers to define and then take inventory of mature and old growth forests nationwide within a year. And it requires officials to identify threats to older trees and wildlife, climate change, and then develop policies to try to safeguard them. So that was his first initiative earlier today at Seward Park.
Right, and let's listen in a little bit to see what Maria Cantwell has to say right now.
And make sure the FTC does its job and protects consumers and those with insulin drug pricing in the United States of America. We need to do everything we can for consumers, and we will investigate PBMs, trust me. Now I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, a champion for families in the United States of America. She's leading the charge on making sure we get affordable child care in the United States of America. Who better than our own Patty Murray? Give her a great Green River welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. It is great to be here with my great colleagues. I'm delighted to be here at Green River College. And as a former community college instructor myself, I know how important places like this are to help make sure everyone lives up to their full potential. And isn't it great to have a First Lady in the White House who feels the same way?
Yeah.
I'm really glad that President Biden is with us here today so he can hear directly from Washington State families about how and why we have all got to be completely focused on lowering costs for working people every day, especially as families see these higher prices at the pump and at the grocery store. Just yesterday, I actually met with some parents and providers in Seattle to talk about the child care crisis. And Mr. President, it is a crisis. Even before this pandemic, child care cost more than college tuition in Washington State, and that is really outrageous. When families cannot find or afford child care that they need, it's bad for kids and parents and workers and businesses. And I know it's especially hard on moms who've disproportionately left our workforce in order to take care of their kids. The reality is, when parents can't work because of child care, that's not just a problem for them. It's a problem for our small businesses who can't fill their positions. It's one less link in our supply chain to get things moving along. And ultimately, it is just one more strain on our economy. So President Biden, I'm really glad he is in my corner fighting for child care. We can fix this, and we must fix this. In the Senate right now, we're actually working to pass our child care plan that will lower the cost of child care for working families by thousands of dollars per year and give parents more options so they can actually find that child care where they live and raise wages for our child care workers as well. And by the way, that plan is fully paid for by making sure that the very wealthiest pay their fair share. Helping people and solving problems is our job, and we can help working families by putting money back in their pockets and taking a little stress off their shoulders. And that's why I'm here today fighting to lower drug costs as well. For years now, drug costs have been skyrocketing. I have heard from so many people here in our state, from Seattle to Spokane, who work hard, they play by the rules, they save their money, but they still have to make impossible choices to afford the life-saving medicine that they need. And that's the thing, life-saving medicine doesn't save any lives if people can't afford it. Every day, people in this country, probably right here in this room, are wondering if they would be better off rationing their prescription and risking their lives just to make ends meet. And that is simply unacceptable. So here's where Congress and the President can step in. we are pushing for meaningful steps to bring down drug costs and crack down on pharmaceutical companies that are driving prices up. And that will mean stopping companies from gaming the system and blocking cheaper generic drugs, finally giving Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices, permanently capping insulin at $35 a month for our patients, and extending the relief we passed, which is saving millions of patients thousands of dollars on their health premiums every year. Now, I'm going to keep fighting for all of this. I know President Biden will as well, which is why I'm so grateful to have him here with us today and in the White House fighting to help us bring down costs on everything from prescription drugs to child care and bring some relief to our families here in Washington State. And I'm really grateful to have other Washington State champions for families in the House as well, like Dr. Schreier, who is a powerful voice for people in our state, especially for our patients. I cheered when you got the insulin cap passed in the House. I'm going to keep pushing with you to get this done in the Senate. So please join me in welcoming my great friend, a great fighter, Congresswoman Schreier. Thank you.
Wow, look at everybody here. This is so exciting. Thank you, Senators. I am thrilled to be here today with President Biden to talk about the need to bring down costs for American families, especially healthcare costs. Joining us today are some very special people. My former patient, Rourke Hufford, who I see, and his mother, Nina, and his sisters are here as well. We have Juliana Graceffo and her mother, Elisa, Jonathan Alverson and his mom, Michelle, and Preston and Sophia Mealy and their father, Chris, and my endocrinologist, Earl Hirsch, who works every day to make sure that his patients can afford their insulin. Healthcare costs are very personal to all of us. In fact, it's been 37 years, it's a long time, since my pediatrician told me that I had type 1 diabetes. It was April Fool's Day. I'll never forget it. At that time, insulin was cheap, really cheap, but the cost of insulin has skyrocketed. This tiny 2-teaspoon bottle that I use used to cost $40. Now it costs over $300. And most of us need more than one bottle per month. And here's the thing. When people can't afford insulin, they try to make that bottle last as long as it possibly can. So they ration their insulin, taking just enough to stay alive, but not enough to keep them healthy. And that is dangerous, not just dangerous, that is sometimes deadly. And no one should ever have to make that choice. That's why I was proud to vote for a bill last month that will cap insulin prices at $35 per month. And it is but you know, we're not done. It is why I have been working the past 3 years to bring down the cost of other prescription drugs and the cost of health care in general. Mr. President, I am so happy to be able to work with you on a whole host of ways to bring down costs for American families so that they can feel secure financially and optimistic about their futures. It is such an honor to have you here in Washington's 8th district, this congressional district, today. Because we want to hear more about how you are working hard to just give families a little more breathing room. Now, I am excited to introduce Juliana and Elisa Graceffo, so you can hear Juliana's story. It seems like Juliana and I have kind of parallel lives, just 40 years apart. We were both diagnosed with diabetes as teenagers. We were both inspired by our doctors to go into medicine. And so to Juliana, I will say what my doctor, my endocrinologist, said to me 40 years ago: I look forward to having you as a colleague. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Green River College, please welcome your governor, Jay Inslee.
Thank you. Good afternoon. What a great Earth Day in the state of Washington to have a president of the United States who understands one of the best ways to avoid health costs is to prevent our kids from getting asthma. And this is a president who's fighting climate change so our kids don't have to breathe pollution. That's a great president. And we are so appreciative of him being here. Now, we just had an event at Seward Park amongst the old growth trees, and he laid out the comprehensive strategy he has to prevent our kids from having to breathe pollution. And he has done some incredible stuff fighting climate change. And now won't it be great when Congress sends him another bill so he can continue this effort? So we're looking forward to that. Now, I do want to share with you, and I'm sharing with the president, some of the good work we're doing in the state of Washington. We are leading the country in the ability to keep health care costs down in a variety of ways. I'm proud that our state is one of the first, maybe the first, to limit insulin costs to $35. I'm proud of that. That's a good step forward. I'm proud that we have actually set a limit on the amount of some of the most expensive drugs. I'm proud that we are now bundling our payments so we pay for results. We pay for health, not just procedures that can keep people healthier and reduce costs. And I'm proud that we've actually increased our subsidization for people so that they can get Obamacare. And thank you, President Obama, and our legislators for Obamacare. Thank you very much for what we're doing. And I am proud to have the first public option in the United States so that we can really have new options for our people. So we have a lot to be proud of when it comes to health care costs in the state of Washington. But to this audience at this incredible college, I have a request. We need you as nurses. We need you as medical assistants. We need you as phlebotomists. We need you to come into these ranks, because one of the reasons is we want to make sure we have well-paid nurses taking care of healthy patients, and we need your talents to do that. So thank this college, thank the President of the United States for being a great friend of Washington State. Good luck. Happy Earth Day. Take care.
So if you're just joining us, this is a Fox 13 special report as we track day 2 of President Joe Biden's 2-day visit here in the Pacific Northwest. The president is using today, Earth Day, to sign an executive order. He did so just a couple of hours ago to protect some of the nation's largest and oldest trees, Hannah, and he spoke earlier at Seward Park in Seattle.
Yeah, so a lot of things going on right now about those, the executive order, but also what he's going to talk about when he gets to the podium here. But earlier today, Jamie, as you were talking about Seward Park, he talked about those old growth trees. And the reason why he is targeting old growth trees is because a lot of the times they can be a buffer to climate change because they absorb a lot of carbon dioxide. And so he has told different agencies that, look, you have a year to target these mature trees, study them, see what's going on, and he wants things done to protect it. And also, we have a wildfire issue in this state, and this is supposed to help with, the forests here and the issues that we're having with all the wildfires. So there's a lot of that going on, but now we're expecting him again to speak about inflation, cost of living, things that are really hitting many Americans hard. And this is something that this is going to be on his agenda. Obviously, right now, the latest Gallup poll, Jamie, he is in trouble in many ways. There's only a 41% approval rating for his job as the president of the United States. And the number one issue for many, many people right now is just to go about their day, to get gas, to get food on the table, many things that are impacting everyday Americans.
Yeah, so we're waiting to hear from President Biden here at the podium at Green River College, and he is expected to talk about a plan to lower health care and energy costs. According to the White House press secretary Jen Psaki yesterday, she said President Biden will discuss how he's fighting to bring down prescription drug costs, as you were saying, things like insulin. And of course, he will also be joined by Senators Patty Murray and Maria Cantwell and Congresswoman Kim Schreier as well. And we were just listening to them a few moments ago, and now we want to listen to the president.
All right. Hello. My name is Elisa Graceffo. I am a mom of 3 kids from Sammamish, Washington. It's about 30 miles north of here. On Christmas Eve in 2008, my oldest daughter, Juliana, who's standing here, she was then 4. She became pale and lethargic. She was feeling so bad that she skipped our Christmas Eve dinner. We thought it was the flu. She continued to feel worse and worse throughout that evening, and by the middle of the night, she started having difficulty breathing. We called 911, and an ambulance came and took us to Seattle Children's Hospital. When we arrived, the ER doctor asked if anyone had checked Juliana's blood sugar. No one had, and when they checked it, it was over 700. A normal blood sugar range is between 90 and 100. The ER doctor told me immediately that Juliana had type 1 diabetes, which is an autoimmune disease in which the body attacks the insulin-producing cells of the pancreas. This restricts her ability to get energy from food. Type 1 diabetes lasts a lifetime, and people with type 1 must take insulin to live. Juliana spent the next 36 hours in a coma-like state called diabetic ketoacidosis in the pediatric ICU before they were able to stabilize her. We then spent the next 3 days in the hospital learning how to take care of a young child with this disease. It's a 24/7 process of checking blood sugars, counting the carbohydrates of everything your child eats so you can calculate the right amount of insulin to give, and then giving insulin shots. Blood sugars going too high or too low can have devastating short-term and long-term consequences. Living with type 1 diabetes is a family affair. One of my philosophies in life, which I try to impart to my children, is that when life gives you lemons, you should make lemonade. Our family has been involved in raising awareness and funds for type 1 diabetes research to help prevent, treat, and cure type 1 since shortly after Juliana was diagnosed. We are proud that through our Team Juliana efforts, we have raised nearly $500,000 for diabetes research. But it's hard to make lemonade when the cost of some of the ingredients can be so high and steadily increase. No one should suffer or die in America because they cannot afford insulin. That is unacceptable. Fortunately for us, today, Juliana is in high school and thriving. But as a parent, the worry never ceases. For the millions of other families across America, there is no time to lose. We need to act. Thank you for this opportunity. I'd like to invite my daughter Juliana to share a few words now.
Thank you, Mom. It is an honor for my family and me to be here today to talk about the importance of insulin affordability. My name is Juliana Graceffo, and I am a senior at Eastlake High School in Sammamish, Washington. As my mom just recounted, I have been living with type 1 diabetes since I was 4 years old. Here, in fact, is the insulin pump that delivers the essential insulin hormone, which I need to survive, to my body through this tube and into my skin. Once my family got over the initial shock of this diagnosis and gained some confidence in how to manage it day to day, we turned our attention to advocacy. As a high school freshman, I represented Washington State with a group that went to Washington, D.C. to lobby Congress to pass the Special Diabetes Program, which provides $150 million in research funding over 3-year cycles to this cause. And we were successful in getting that passed. Thank you to Senators Murray and Cantwell and Representative Schreier for their support on that. The federal government has such a huge role to play in advancing basic research on diabetes and so many other areas. And we have seen real results too. When I was 4, type 1 diabetes treatment consisted of 10 or more finger poke blood tests a day and 10 to 15 insulin injections a day with regular syringes. Today, I wear a continuous glucose monitor on my skin, which tests my blood sugar level every 5 minutes, and this data is wirelessly transferred to my insulin pump, which then uses advanced software algorithms to calculate insulin dosages on my behalf, then delivers the necessary insulin through a tube into the site on my skin. None of this progress would have been possible without the support of the federal government and private organizations. But the common element in these improved treatments is insulin. We have better ways to dose and deliver the required insulin, but we still need the insulin itself. And here, during my 14 years and counting as a diabetic, we have seen nothing but increase after increase in the cost of insulin, a human hormone whose DNA sequence exists in the public domain. In fact, this cost has tripled over the past decade, while the insulin itself is largely unchanged. We need something to change, and I am honored to introduce someone who is working to deliver that change. A president who understands the hopes and dreams of families like mine across this country. Please welcome President Biden.
Juliana, my colleagues, I'm taking her back to Washington. We're going to get the rest of my bill passed. We're going to get it done. By the way, I hope I don't embarrass her, but she's off to Notre Dame next year. I've done the commencement there a couple of times. I told her if she sees me on campus, I don't want her to say Joe who when I come up to see her. Promise?
Promise.
God love you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mom. Lisa and Juliana, thank you for that introduction. And, as my mother would say, God love you. You're saving lives. You're saving lives by pointing out what needs to be done. I want to start off, though, by pointing out a couple things. Number one, as was mentioned earlier, my wife, Jill, is a community college professor. I believe she's the only first lady ever to work full-time, and she's still working full-time as a community college professor, and that's why she's not with me today. But one of the things we're also working on, just parenthetically, and this is a great college, it really is. Thanks in part to the leadership of the governor, you have one of the best systems in the country. And I want you to know, though, that we know, and I know firsthand, my wife's an English professor and teaches writing as well. The number of students that come back to schools like this and the community college where Jill teaches, Northern Virginia Community College, are coming back having not been in school for a long time, many times. Coming back because they want to better their lives, breaking their necks to get here. Some of them, and the average age of my wife's students is 28 years of age. That's the average age. People coming through difficult circumstances they find themselves in, and back east, a number of immigrant families coming through. And the cost is still, no matter how the states try to control it, still matters. So one of the things that it didn't do all I wanted to do, but was just able to sign a new budget bill that increases the Pell Grants by $400 a year. The largest increase in 10 years, but we have to do more. Look, I want to say a special thank you to Governor Inslee for his welcome and his partnership across a broad range of issues, including strengthening the economy, your economy, and fighting the pandemic. But, you know, I refer to him, and he knows this to be true, because when I was back seeking the nomination, he is the environmental governor of the nation. This guy is leading the whole country. And you have one heck of a congressional delegation. Starting with my friend Patty Murray. You know, when we passed the Recovery Act, the first bill we passed, I went to Patty and I said, I want to deal with the child tax credit, which was something that had to be done. Patty's been fighting for it for years and years and years. I got it passed. We got it passed. And it reduced child poverty in America by 40%. But because of a couple folks, because we don't have this, we lack one Democrat and 50 Republicans from keeping it from passing this time around. But it really fundamentally changed the lives of millions of people, Patty. You know it better than I do. But it reduced child poverty by 40%. And she talked about earlier about the cost of child care. I was a single dad for 5 years when my wife and daughter were killed in an automobile accident. And I commuted every day, 250 miles, 270 miles a day, from Wilmington, Delaware to Washington, D.C. on Amtrak. Everybody thought I did it because I just wanted to be home. That's true, but I did it because I couldn't possibly afford child care. I was a United States Senator. I had the dubious distinction for 36 years of being listed as the poorest man in the Senate, but I was making a lot of money as a senator from my perspective. And I didn't think I should be making any money other than my salary as a senator. And I could not possibly afford, even back in 1972 and 3, I could not afford child care. That's why I went home every single night, over 200,000 miles worth of my career. And folks, there's easy answers. There's easy answers. We can do all that Patty and I and others have been talking about, and not one person in America making less than $400,000 a year will see a single solitary increase in their taxes. Not one, not a single increase. And folks, you know, I sometimes been called by some of my interesting Republican friends, Democrats are all socialists. I'm a capitalist. And I think if you can make $1 billion or $1 million or $100 million, you should be able to do it. But pay your fair share. Pay your fair share. I come from the corporate state of the world, Delaware. More corporations are incorporated in Delaware than every other state in the union combined. And I got elected 6 times as senator, notwithstanding that. Here's the point. On the Fortune 500 companies, 40 of them last year, they made $40 billion and didn't pay a single solitary penny in taxes. It's not right. It's just not fair. All they got to do is just pay a fair share. And we can do all of this and so much more, but that's not what my point being here tonight. Today, I should say. And Senator Cantwell, she's been a champion in this state, a key player in the bipartisan infrastructure law, and delivering high-speed internet all across the state of Washington and because we're going to outcompete the rest of the world. She understands how we do it. We got to have you have access to that information. Think about it. During the pandemic, how many of you parents had to drive your kids into a McDonald's parking lot to get on the internet to be able to do your homework? Not a joke. This is the United States of America, for God's sake. The United States of America. Because of this lady and others, we are going to see to it every single place in this country, rural, urban, and suburban, has access to high-speed internet. And Congresswoman Shire, who represents a district, a doctor, an MD, who knows what folks go through in our healthcare system and knows how to make it better. You know, this includes how to fill the nursing shortage to help colleges like this one train and prepare the next generation of nurses and healthcare workers. My wife and her went to Delaware Community College and now in Northern Virginia teaches an awful lot of nurses. An awful lot of nurses. And by the way, docs are okay. I've been a significant consumer of health care in my career. Unfortunately, I was hospitalized for the better part of 7 months with 2 cranial aneurysms and an embolism, and my son Bo came back as a decorated war hero from Iraq after a year of stage 4 glioblastoma, and spent 15 months at the end just hanging on. And you know, doctors let you live. Nurses, male and female, I'm not joking, any of you in nursing programs, they make you want to live. Not a joke. Not a joke. I think it's the single most underrated profession in the United States of America. I really mean it. When I was at Walter Reed all those months, I'd lie there in that ICU and look at the monitors. And you know, if any of those lines go flat, you're in trouble. But seriously, after a while, and you've seen this, Doc, you just get tired. I wasn't in pain, just get tired, just want to stop. And my nurses, I remember to this day their names. They'd come in and they'd change the pillow, they'd rub my head, they'd do something, they'd keep you moving, talk to you. That's why what I did was, they said everybody comes out of an intensive care unit, the joke is in hospitals is, they either get taken out in the nurses never see me. They either get taken out in a bag or they never want to come back. I used to go back once a month and have dinner with the nurses every night on the night shift to thank them. So any of you anybody in here, well, I'm not sure how many are part of the college, but any of you studying nursing, keep it. Well, God love you. Oh, I really mean it. And I don't want to disappoint you, because the male nurses are as consequences of the female nurses, okay? Not a joke. And so anyway, I just wanted to mention that, and I want to thank Congresswoman Kilmer and for the nearby district, the 6th district, I guess. He's leading the charge in the economy to make sure that we leave no community behind. And we're also joined today by Larson and I know. You're gonna. No, I got it. Del Bene, who's a real champion for working families. And while she couldn't be here today, Congresswoman Jayapal is doing an incredible job in the state. She's visiting. She's been a great partner of mine and worked really close with me. And she's visiting her family now, and she'll be back shortly. But folks, we're all laser focused on lowering the costs for you and your families across the board. And a big way to do that is lower the cost of health care. Health care, especially in the area of prescription drugs. The governor in this state has already gotten insulin down to $35 for, I guess it's a year you've done it so far. Is that right? Well, either early this month, President Obama came back to the White House. He's a good friend. He came back to the White House for the first time in a long time to celebrate the 12th anniversary of the Affordable Care Act. We talked about how hard it was to get it done in the first place and why we were so determined to get it done. It was for the people who desperately needed it and had no alternatives. and deserve to be treated with, as my dad, the word he used most, is everyone is entitled to be treated with dignity. Everyone. And there's no loss of your dignity like not being able to take care of a child who's sick, or a wife, or a spouse, or husband. And countless Americans lie in bed at night staring up at the ceiling, wondering, what happens? What happens if I get sick? What happens if I get prostate cancer, or my wife gets breast cancer? What do we do? How do we take care of the family? Who's going to pay for it? What's going to happen? Thousands and thousands of Americans stare at that ceiling. So we did it with the idea that an American health care should be a right, not a privilege. And well, with the help of the leaders here at a federal and state level, we began to make some good on the proposition of fighting and defending and improving the Affordable Care Act after it got passed. You know, if we can hold for a second here, remember, my colleagues will remember, I was out of office 1 year as vice president at the end of the term in the 2018 elections. And you remember the other team wanted to do away with Obamacare. They had scores of court cases, scores of votes to try to eliminate it. But what happened was a lot of people didn't, Barack is kind of a humble guy. And I used to say to him after we won that Affordable Care fight, I said, you ought to take a victory lap. Let people know what happened. He said, we don't have time. We don't have time. Oh, guess what? I went into 58 races that year to campaign where there was an incumbent Republican and a Democrat running. I only went with Republicans who wanted to eliminate the Affordable Care Act. And what I pointed out was, if in fact that Republican won that year and they took back the Congress, what was going to happen? Anyone with a pre-existing condition could not get coverage again. Not just an Affordable Care Act, but couldn't get coverage in your personal insurance you paid for. And all of a sudden, people went, whoa, we won 44 of those races. On the one thing, knowing they were going to eliminate the idea that if you have a pre-existing condition, you couldn't get coverage. Now you can under the Affordable Care Act. Within the first months of my administration, we passed the landmark American Rescue Plan, a law that not only helped us get COVID-19 under control and our economy back on track, but millions of people more insured under the Affordable Care Act. We made it easier for people to sign up for coverage in the middle of the pandemic. We opened a special enrollment period and gave millions of Americans more time to enroll in the Affordable Care Act. We quadrupled the number of navigators out in the communities helping folks know how to sign up to get the coverage. And here in Washington State, about 240,000 folks signed up for ACA coverage just last year, an additional 240,000. And we're continuing to expand Medicaid in states. You know, there were a total of 36 states who said we're going to cover, even though the federal government said we're going to cover it for free in the beginning, and they have to eventually sign on to help pay for it. Well, we added 2 more states. That's millions of people who have now Medicaid coverage. Over 31 million Americans now have health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. And that includes nearly 900,000 people across the state of Washington. 4 out of 5 Americans can find quality coverage for under $10 a month in the Affordable Care Act. We made it cheaper to purchase the premium plans under the Affordable Care Act. The average family today, since we passed that law in our administration, are saving $2,400 in annual premiums and getting better coverage. That's $200 savings every month, allowing them to have more money available for other needs in their lives. With inflation, with Putin's gas tax, with the groceries because of the loss of access to the wheat fields in Russia and in Ukraine, prescription drugs and other necessities, that $200 can make a difference in a month. The bottom line is this: the Affordable Care Act is stronger now than it's ever been, and we're strengthening it even further. Earlier this month, I signed an executive order directing the federal agency to continue doing everything they can in their power to expand the quality of affordable health care coverage. This work builds on what we've done to end the surprise charges you often see on medical bills, particularly at hospitals. Any of you who've been hospitalized, I hope they haven't had to, but if you've been lately and you found out your coverage doesn't cover certain particular doctors, but you then get a surprise bill for a couple $1,000 because without your knowledge, they had another doctor looking at what you needed to do. No surprise bills anymore. They can't do that. They can't do that. No more surprise medical billing. And separately, we're fixing what was referred to as the family glitch. But that is a common issue facing 5 million Americans who can't get financial help or get coverage under the Affordable Care Act. Here's the problem. Under the current rules, a working mom is told that as long as she can afford employer-based coverage herself, she can't qualify for premium subsidies of the Affordable Care Act to afford coverage for the rest of her family. And so we changed that. We propose starting next year, working families will get the help they need to afford family coverage under the Affordable Care Act. And as a result, these families will save hundreds of dollars a month. With this change, it's estimated that 200,000 presently uninsured Americans will gain coverage. Nearly 1 million Americans will see their coverage become more affordable. This is considered one of the best things and biggest thing my administration can do is lower costs and expand coverage. You talked about, I talked about and was mentioned by several who spoke before me about just a little breathing room. I was raised in a town in Delaware, and it was a nice neighborhood. It was a 3-bedroom split-level home when they were developing suburban areas, housing developments, that with 4 kids, a mom and a dad and a grandpa living with us. And the walls were thin. And you could hear, I remember one day, it's a true story, one day one night I hear my dad was really restless getting up and down. And I asked my mom the next morning before I went to school what was wrong with Dad. She said, they told him, honey, that they're not going to cover insurance anymore in his job, health insurance. Well, like I said, it's about dignity. It's about worrying about your family. So we need to keep this fight up. And Republicans, and I, as you know, I get criticized by the press because I'm not partisan enough, okay? Well, this is not your father's Republican Party, as I said. They continue to attack the Affordable Care Act and want to eliminate it. They're unrelenting. Multiple court challenges, sabotage from previous administration, over 70 attempts to repeal the law by Republicans in Congress, 70 times. In fact, just last month, Republican Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin said, if the Republicans get back in power and take back the House and the Senate, they should repeal the Affordable Care Act again. 12 years later, Republicans still haven't stopped their attacks on this life-saving law. So, pay close attention. If they have their way, it means 100 million Americans with pre-existing conditions once again be denied health coverage. Not hyperbole, it's a fact. Will be denied health care coverage by their insurance companies. That's what the law was before Obamacare. In addition, tens of millions of Americans could lose their coverage, including young people, who will no longer be able to be covered by their parents' plans up to age 26. Premiums are going to go through the roof. So there's a lot at stake. Well, I've got a better idea. Instead of destroying the Affordable Care Act, let's keep building on it. Extend the American Rescue Plan subsidies that we've already passed, allowing premiums and expanded coverage, lower premiums, expanded coverage. Close the Medicaid coverage gap that locks nearly 4 million Americans out of coverage just because they're in states that refuse to expand Medicaid. And let's do something that will bring down prices, lower the cost of prescription drugs. Let me note parenthetically, the only thing that Medicare cannot negotiate with healthcare providers on are drugs. They can tell you they're only going to pay X amount of money for doctor visits, Y amount of money for a particular operation, et cetera. But the only thing they can't negotiate are prescription drugs, except for one area. We insisted a long time ago that the department that relates to the military, you have a great guy running Veterans Affairs now. Veterans Affairs can say, we're not going to pay you any more than X or Y for this particular drug. But you can't do that for anything else. Medicare can't do that anywhere else. In America, we pay the highest prescription drug cost of any developed nation in the world. That's a fact. It's about 2.5 to 3 times higher than paid for the same exact drug, the same manufacturer in other countries. For example, the anti-cancer drug to treat leukemia and lymphoma costs $1,400 a month in the United States. Some of you may know that. The same exact drug, the same exact company, same distribution, costs $6,000, not $14,000, in France. Same company, American company. Same exact amount. It's unconscionable. Today, 1 in 4 Americans who need prescription drugs struggle to afford them. Nearly 30% of people needing essential drug doses that they're supposed to take, 30% skip their doses because they want to extend the life of the drug that they need. Many people use over-the-counter drugs instead, cut pills in half because they can't afford them. There's others simply not fill their prescriptions at all. As I said, for God's sake, this is the United States of America. What are we doing? It's simply wrong, especially since it doesn't cost the drug companies nearly as much to make the drug or the research that went into it. There's a system they have in Germany and other countries that the drug company can charge, the price is set when they in fact try to bring the drug on market. It's like in our case, the FDA approve it. And the way it works is they go, how much did you invest to come up with the drug? How much did you put in? And they allow a healthy profit of 10, 20, 30, 40% and say that's what you can sell it for in our country. Unless you invest more to improve the drug and show you put more into it. Otherwise, it can't go above the cost of inflation. Look, the insulin we were talking about, you know how much it costs to make that vial of insulin? $10. TEN, $10 to treat diabetes, $10. A condition that affects millions of Americans, including a congresswoman. But some families have to pay hundreds of dollars a month. Some even over $1,000. The average cost is $863 a month. Or excuse me, $683 a month for a life-saving insulin. You just heard Lisa and Julia talk about trying to afford insulin and treat the type 1 diabetes. Imagine what it's like if you don't have insurance and you don't have the cash to look at your child, knowing what they need, and knowing there's not a damn thing you can do about it. Not only your child put in jeopardy, you're deprived of your dignity. How do you look at your child and deal with it? And there's no excuse, none. We're not asking drug companies to do anything that they can't afford. If you think it doesn't affect you, it does. Everyone has less money in their pocket today because of the high cost of health care. Over the past decade, health care costs have gone up 50%. And a major reason for that increase is the cost of the drugs in health care. Folks, we may not agree on everything. I think it's safe to say that all of us, whatever our background, our age, where we live, agree that prescription drugs are outrageously expensive. So here's what I'm proposing. I met with the 12 largest drug manufacturers, and I did the initiative the last President Obama, when I was vice president, allowed me to do, to deal with the cost of this. And I met with them, and I said, I said, what if you find the cure for a particular drug? What should you be able to charge for a major cancer facility? They said, whatever the market will bear. I said, no. I said, here's the deal. Here's what I think you should do. If you have to spend millions of dollars, you should be able to recoup everything you put into it. But if it's way beyond the cost of the average American, the federal government should step up and compensate you for it so that, in fact, the American people can still have life-saving drugs. So here's what I'm proposing with the help of the members of Congress. First, let's cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month. That still means it cost them 10, 3.5 times as much as it cost them. Second, let's end the days when companies could increase prices with no oversight and no accountability. If drug companies increase their prices faster than the rate of inflation, they should have to face a steep tax. We're saying that, by the way, we wouldn't let utility companies do it. Utilities can't all of a sudden raise the cost of the utilities you raise. We're saying, drug companies, you're finally going to be held accountable when you raise prices for the American people. You should be able to make a significant profit, but not gouge. Third, let's cap the amount that seniors on Medicare have to spend for prescription drugs each year. If you're on Medicare, you won't have to spend more than $2,000 out of pocket, which is a lot of money. And that's more than $170 a month, no matter how many prescriptions you're taking, because the Medicare will take up the rest. Drug companies, insurance companies, Medicare would pick up the rest of the cost. And finally, let's give Medicare the power to negotiate prescription drug prices for every other type of health care. It uses it to leverage lower prices for American seniors. But for prescription drugs, the only prescription drug Medicare is prohibited by law from negotiating to get the best deals for seniors. And by the way, it doesn't put the drug company, we're just saying Medicare is not going to buy it. They're not going to buy it beyond a certain price. It doesn't mean you can't continue to manufacture and ask $1 billion for it, but the federal government's not going to pay for it. It's long past time we get rid of these absurd limitations. Let Medicare negotiate fair prices, reflect the cost of the research, the development, the need for a significant profit, but also affordable for seniors. Let me close with this. I grew up in a family where prices went up for things that were daily requirements, like the gallon of gasoline. It became a discussion at the kitchen table. It mattered. It was always on the margins. We felt it. That's why I'm so focused on doing everything I can to lower the cost of gas and energy and accelerate our transition to clean energy. I also know there are other basic needs that affect the standard of living for most families. I was a single dad, as I said, for 5 years. I couldn't afford child care. No way I could, but I had a sister and a brother. We have an expression in my family, for real, not a joke. If you have to ask, it's too late. Think about it. So when my wife and daughter were killed and the boys came home from the hospital, I found out my sister and her husband had already moved into my house. I'd purchased an old farmhouse, a colonial farmhouse in northern Delaware, and it had a little barn on it as well. It was only a couple acres. My brother came in and spent money changing the barn on the upstairs of the barn into an apartment. My brother and sister moved in. I dropped my kids off every morning when I'd go to the train station with my mom. But look, as I said, I had a good job. How do people make it? But I know child care is hard. It costs a lot of money. That's why, with your members of Congress, led by Patty, who's an absolute leader on this, I want to cap the cost of child care for families making under $125,000 to 7% of your income. We can do these things without raising taxes a penny on anyone, as I said, making under $400,000. The bottom line is this. When I was running for the president, you heard me say 1,000 times, you probably got tired of it, you're tired of it now. that we're going to build this economy around you, the American middle class. Because when the middle class does well, the poor have a way up and the wealthy do very well. They never are hurt when the middle class is doing well. And we're going to deal in people and the places that have been left out and left behind. We're making progress. Over the course of my presidency so far, 14 months, we've created 7.9 million good-paying jobs, more jobs created in 14 months than any presidency in a year ever. The unemployment rate is 3.6%, down from 6.4% when I took office. The fastest decline in unemployment at the start of any presidency ever recorded. Washington State, you've added 218,000 jobs, and unemployment dropped from 6.3 to 4.2%. Last year, in 2021, we cut, and all this was going on, we cut the deficit. You know, all my friends talk about how they care about the deficit. We cut it $350 billion last year. And this year, in 2022, we're on track to cut the deficit by more than, I want to mark it down because you'll remind me of this, by $1.3 trillion. 1.3. That stays on course with the largest one-year reduction of a deficit in history. This is particularly important now as we work to reduce pressure on inflation. From Washington State to all across America, we've gone from on the mend to on the move. We're coming at our challenges from a position of strength. I'm more optimistic. I'm more optimistic about America today than I've been in my whole life, my whole career. Because I see a future that's within our grasp. We're the only nation on earth, think about this now. We're the only nation on earth that has always come out of every crisis we've ever met stronger than we went in it. No other nation in the world can say that. It's because of you, because of the ingenuity and determination of the American people. We've just looked at opportunity and seized it. That's exactly what we're doing today. So as my grandfather Ferguson used to say, with the grace of God, the goodwill of the neighbors, and the creek not rising, we're going to do well. It's going to be hard for a while getting through the cost of gasoline and energy because of Putin and the war. But we're going to do it. And with your help, and I say to all the folks who are students here, I wish you well. We need you badly. And the reason I'm so optimistic, think about it. You are the least prejudiced, the most involved, the most concerned generation in American history. You really are. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. God bless you all. Appreciate it. Thanks.
So we've been listening to President Biden speaking at Green River College, outlining plans to lower health care costs around the country for families.
Yeah, he talked a lot about different issues. Again, he talked about insulin and also corporate taxes. This wasn't just a message for the people in the audience. It was a message to Congress. He wants to push his agenda right now. So we want to focus on the traffic because if you were anywhere today in the Seattle area, it was gridlock traffic as the president moved around with his entourage. So we want to now go to Aaron Mayovsky's because Aaron, he is now heading from the Green River College, which is in Auburn, all the way to SeaTac. So that's really going to jam up things.
Yeah, as he's in the sky or on the ground, it does jam up things even when they're in the sky flying overhead. Traffic along the corridors, I-5, Highway 18 tend to get gummed up anyways during a commute like this. But right now we're doing okay. As we look outside, you can see that there's a slow crawl here waiting for a light to get going on 18. But as you come around and wrap around towards the interchange of I-5, where some of these cars may be looking up to the skies as Marine One goes up in the air there as we push through, but not really any major problems. We've got a gorgeous day out there, so sky conditions going to be okay. I don't think there'll be any problems with that as far as the president's departure. For us, it's a pretty view out there to enjoy with temperatures in the mid-50s. But as we look up the freeway a little more towards the I-5 corridor, Federal Way, Auburn, the connections, there's really not any gridlock down on the lower main streets and the sub-streets through the tributaries and the neighborhoods. We're seeing the flow pretty well this afternoon. What we're seeing is some slowdowns, and that's pretty typical. As we head up 167, you can see some slowdowns even out towards Des Moines and SeaTac. Now we're expecting maybe some delays a half hour before the president's departure, so that could be right about now. We start to get the commercial airplanes lining up on the tarmac out there on the jetway at SeaTac. But right now, traffic volume's looking really decent in and around as we've zoomed through. I know it's a lot of bright color out here, but we are seeing folks able to travel right now. As soon as the president does get overhead, we may see some slowdowns, people looking up. I know a lot of people tweeted on social media saying last night was a jam up anywhere around the Seattle area. Some folks were up in the Shoreline area trying to get back to the Bellevue area, an hour and a half to 2 hours. Right now, our air travel delays map shows us that we are looking okay pretty much across the country, and even in the Northwest here at SeaTac International Airport. That could change like it did yesterday. The green means go, no delays, but once it goes up to the yellow, that's minor, and moderate is red with major in fuchsia. We didn't see that yesterday. We did see the yellow, so about 15-20 minute delays. Everything got back on schedule, but again, it is a disruption, and if you're looking up to the skies and you see the Marine One going over there, just be mindful on the roadways because there are other drivers out there as well. We don't want anyone getting in some accidents. We'll keep an eye on the roadways for you and let you know if those delays or any clog-ups come up right around the SeaTac area coming up.
All right, we're going to stay on top of the president's trip here as he gets ready to depart from SeaTac Airport. That's going to happen around 2:50. We're thinking we do have a crew there at SeaTac monitoring the situation. We'll have much more on air and online at fox13seattle.com. But for now, we'll send you back to your regular program.
This has been a Fox 13 News special report.